Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Michael Emery here, aka Roger Curains, and I'm bringing you another police-related video. This time I'm going to be talking about something a little different, something a little more personal for me, and it's pretty much why I became a police officer. And this is a special video to me, not only because I'm going to talk about myself a little more, but because we actually just hit 2,000 subscribers, which for me is a great accomplishment. I never thought that I'd actually have this many subscribers. I know it's not a lot, but for me it is, and I just wanted to say thank you to you guys, and I thought maybe talking about myself a little more and trying to give insight on, what it is to be a police officer, especially in my experience. I thought that would be a good way to give back to you guys. A lot of people really have a misconception of what it means to be a police officer. A lot of people think you're going to go to work every day and kick ass and you know what I mean, write people tickets and kick doors in, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's really not that for the most part. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be parts and times in your career where you've done that, but for the most part, being a police officer on the street, you are going to see all kinds of stuff. You're going to see things that you never thought you'd see before. You're going to deal with things that you never thought you'd have to deal with before. You're actually going to see stuff that may bring a bad memory back to you because of past experiences in your life, and you're going to have to just deal with all that stuff. With being a police officer, you have to understand that kicking doors down and being badass and pulling your gun out, all those things that a lot of people think being a police officer is about, you're really not going to be doing that stuff. Not saying that there's not going to be a time where you're going to, again, but for the most part, being a cop is really not about those things. Helping the community, talking to people, helping people with their problems. Most of the time, especially when you're on day shift, you're going to be dealing with people's problems that you really didn't think that people would call the cops about. People call the cops because their cat gets stuck in the basement. People call the cops because their air conditioner's not working. People call the cops for a lot of different things. And as funny as it may seem to have to deal with those kind of things, it is, I'm not going to say it's all the job, but there is a big portion of the job that revolves around those things. There's things that you do throughout a daily basis that doesn't even involve you even interacting with people. There's the paperwork, you know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff that goes into doing this job. And I really want to spread that knowledge to you guys because I don't want people to have the misconception of what it is to be a police officer. Now, there are certain careers in law enforcement where you'll be kicking doors down and being badass and stuff like that. But as a street level patrol officer, for the most part, you're going to be taking calls, call to call, and you're going to be dealing with stuff that is you're going to go from having a stolen vehicle to someone's, water bottle going missing. You know what I mean? Like, they literally call the cops for things like that. But I think it's really just the hope and the trust that people have in police officers that makes me love the job so much. Even though it seems stupid for someone to call you if their dog runs outside or if their cat goes missing or something, for them to even want to call you for those things just goes to show you how much they actually trust the police, how much they depend on the police. And don't get me wrong, and I said it in a couple of my other videos, but a lot of people hate the police. They wish the police were dead. When it gets to the point where you have people that are wishing death upon you just for doing your job, it really makes you question why you're even doing the job in the first place sometimes. But you have to understand that comes along with it. And the fact that people have that amount of trust and that amount of, they feel so loyal that they can call the police for things like that, it really makes you appreciate having a job in the first place because you know that you're there for a reason. And sometimes people ask me, I actually had multiple people that I graduated high school with, and they always ask me this, like, some of the same questions. They're like, yo man, when did you decide you wanted to be a cop? I never knew you wanted to be a cop. And these are people I went to high school with, people I've known forever. And coming from my background, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I used to get in a lot of trouble back in the day. I used to run the streets. I used to be out there hanging out with people I shouldn't be hanging out with, and God blessed me and was just able to get me away from that environment. Everybody has their own story, so I thought that maybe I'd go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about mine. Growing up, I did live in the center city part of my neighborhood, and I actually do work in that municipality now. But center city, where I used to live in that municipality, is not really a great place. A lot of stuff happens around there, a lot of murders, a lot of burglary, stuff like that, and I grew up in that environment. My mom did her best to keep me in the house, and I love her for that. But things happen, you get out, and sometimes your parents being overprotective, obviously you guys know, will make you want to go out even more. And I got involved with the wrong crowd. I got into a little bit of trouble. Never anything obviously enough to keep me from being a police officer, but I did get into some trouble growing up. and I did a lot of stuff, a lot of stupid stuff that I wish I can go back and take back. But you know what I mean? It makes you who you are, and you learn from it. You learn from those experiences. But just because you go through stuff like that when you're younger doesn't mean that it's going to stop you from doing what you want to do in the future. Now, sometimes you will get caught up and it's going to stop you from being what you want to be one day. But, you know, if you are lucky enough to be able to wake up and be like, wow, I'm doing this shit that I'm doing is wrong, then you know, you're blessed to be able to even open your eyes to see that, because some people get so caught up in that lifestyle they're never able to change. And as cliche as it sounds, I know everybody says it, I've always wanted to be a police officer. There were times in my life where I kind of disliked the police a little bit. I think once I really went to the academy and once I became a police officer, that's when I really realized what it is to do this job, what it means to have people to dislike you and hate you even though you're just doing the best you can. Don't get me wrong, there are police officers out there that give obviously cops all around the world bad names, but for the most part, police officers are just doing their job. They're doing what they have to do to get home every single day to their families. And then again, it's not something that you're going to want to do for your entire life. Sometimes you wake up one day and you want to be a cop. Like, I had a guy in my academy class, he said, I never even knew I wanted to be a cop. I got up one day and I said, you know what, I want to do something. I want to give back to my community. I want to be a role model for younger kids to look up to. I literally woke up one day and decided I wanted to be a cop, and here I am. You know, being an African-American police officer definitely has its pros and cons. You know, I love being in like a bad part of the city where, you know, obviously there's a lot more minorities than there would be in other places of the city. And, you know, people look to me and they're like, wow, man, like, you're really a cop. Like, you're one of the only African-American cops in your department. And they look to me and they're like, you know, maybe I should do that one day. And honestly, that makes me feel really great. And if you want to go for it, guys, like being a cop, when you decide that you want to go into this career field, you have to know you want to do it. Like, you have to have it in your heart and in your head that you want to do it. Because first and foremost, the academy is hard. Some places have easier academies than others, but the academy it was a big wake-up call for me. My instructor was extremely tough. He was giving us 200-page handwritten papers, like handwritten papers on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, and not only that, but you also have the physical part of it. You have the entire lifestyle change. You got to get used to not having any fucking hair. You got to get used to not sleeping. Like, the entire academy prepares you for the job, because there's going to be times where you have to stay over and you're over till 12 o'clock at night. You have to go home and be up at 5 in the morning to go back to work. It happens like that sometimes. The academy literally gears you for that. It gets your body and your mind right for that. To talk a little more about my academy experience, I didn't really go too much into detail in my first video talking about what it was like for me in the academy. I kind of talked about a more general aspect of it, but you know, the academy for me was extremely rough, and you know, I made it rough for myself. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to blame anybody else. It was on me, but it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go, and I literally pushed myself to do it. I believe it was 2014. The end of 2014, I actually injured my lower back. I used to lift like really heavy weights in the gym. I was doing a bench press, and my form was all messed up. I was lifting really heavy weight. I went up to do a rep, and I felt something snap in my lower back. And it wasn't obviously like I didn't injure myself to the point where I had to get a surgery or anything, but it was enough for me to not really be able to walk properly for a while. And I've always been a very active person. I've always been extremely athletic. I've always done flips, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of that on my Instagram and stuff. I've always done flips. I've always been kind of into sports, you know what I mean? I've always been in shape. And then after that happened to me, I noticed that I wasn't able to walk correctly. And then, you know, I ended up going to a doctor, and the doctor told me I need to like lay off from the weights a little bit, obviously, because I was having this unexplainable pain in my back. And if anybody knows how the spinal system works, anything wrong with your spine, it goes throughout your entire body. It goes down to your legs, everything. And the pain that I was feeling, it's like kind of an unexplainable sensation. I can't even really explain to you guys really how bad it felt. And throughout the time period of the end of 2014 up until 2017 when I went to the academy, I was not anywhere near in the shape I should have been. I'm talking about I went into the academy with, obviously there were heavier guys in there, but those heavier guys really didn't make it. We had one guy other than me that was extremely heavy that made it through the academy, and he actually had a background in football, so he knew what it meant to run a lot and do a lot of cardio and stuff. But, you know, I was so out of it that I really didn't think I was going to make it. I remember before the academy started, I went to a party out at one of the colleges over here, and I started walking, and I actually had this thing where I was embarrassed to go out in public and walk because I couldn't walk farther than, I would say, like 2 blocks without having to sit down because my lower back would tighten up so bad from that injury that I had. And the chiropractor, the doctor, they really couldn't tell me what it was because they said everything was fine. But like I said, throughout the period of 2014 to 2017, I actually put on 35 pounds. At one point, I was over 230 pounds. And keep in mind, right now, I'm about 190, like the perfect weight of where I should be. But that's all because of the academy. It was all because every single day I went to the academy, I pushed my body further than I ever could have pushed it before. Before the academy started, I didn't prepare myself as much as I should have, but ultimately the reason why I struggled so much is because I wasn't running. I didn't run for almost 3 years because my lower back wouldn't let me do it. And again, I'm not one of those people to make excuses, but when you have such a bad pain in your body and everything you're doing in the academy is physical, you know, you kind of have no choice but to really blame it on that because that's what it was. But every single day I went in there and I watched these guys run 10 miles like it was no problem. And here I am struggling to even run half a mile. It killed me every single day to go in there. And there was times where I was running. We'd be about a mile into a run and I was literally thinking in my head as I'm just pedaling along, just trying to push myself. Keep in mind, I have 10 instructors behind me screaming and yelling in my ear, you know, talking trash. And that's what the instructors are supposed to do. They're supposed to try to get into your head. And I'm not going to lie, most days they got into my head, but I never quit. And I told everybody in the academy, you know, look, I'm in bad shape right now, but I promise you guys I'll never give up. And as long as you don't give up on me, I'll always push. And everybody kind of like turned their head like, oh man, this guy's not going to make it. He'll be out of here. And graduating, walking across that stage in the end, you know, being back down to 185 pounds from 230, losing 40 pounds in the academy, was the best feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. I've never had such more of a sense of accomplishment than anything ever. I went from running a 16-minute mile and a half to a 10-minute mile and a half. I got my mile and a half time down by 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes. And in the end, you know, throughout every day of hating those instructors for putting me through that, you realize in the end that they did it for the betterment of you. They did it to make you the best version of yourself. And honestly, you know, back to being a cop, it really does feel good to be able to patrol the really bad areas in my old neighborhood because, you know, growing up, I didn't really see a lot of those police officers driving around that area. You know, every cop is different, as I said in my other videos. Some people like to patrol the bad parts. Some people stay in the outskirts and the good parts. But me, I like to really drive around Center City because I grew up in those places. Being able to patrol my mom's house, because again, my mom, we lived in Center City and it's really bad over there. I love being able to patrol that part of my old neighborhood and just check on my mom every half hour. I'll drive through there and make sure there's nobody breaking into her house or anything like that. Being able to drive around those areas, it really does feel good to be able to know that I'm out here and I'm making sure that she's safe. But honestly, I think the experience that I had to go through that really made me decide that I wanted to be a police officer was I was actually coming home from a baseball game. There was this guy I was a kid. There was this kid I was really, really good friends with in 7th grade. 7th grade, I want to say I was 12 or 13 years old. I was really young, but whatever age I was in 7th grade, my friend was like, hey man, you should come watch me play baseball today. And I was like, okay, cool. So, you know, the baseball game started around 4:30 p.m., 5, and it wasn't far from my house in Center City. It was actually a couple blocks out, but I never left the house at this point. Like, I never left. I was always in the house playing video games. My mom was keeping me out of trouble, yada, yada, yada. I went to this baseball game, and I noticed it started to get dark because it was cold out, so obviously the sun is going to go down earlier. I started walking home around 6 o'clock, and I was actually 3 blocks from my house. Three blocks from my house. And the sun was actually completely down at this point, and I started to get a little nervous, but I put my hood on, and I kept walking. And keep in mind, you know, I've never really been through stuff like that, you know what I mean? I've never really had experience like this until it happened to me, and then when it did, I never was the same again after that. So the sun had just completely gone down. I'm 3 blocks out from my house, and I cut the corner. So there's 4 blocks between me and my house at this point. I cut the corner, and I see 2 guys walking towards my area across the street. So this is me, and this is them on the other side of the street. And I'm walking, and I hear these guys mumbling under their breath. I was paranoid, but like I said, I've never had this kind of experience before, so I really didn't think this could happen. So I was walking, and I hear these guys coming closer to me from across the street. And then I looked over, and they were looking at me. So I took my other headphone out, and I'm walking, and I'm about 3 blocks out now at this point. And I hear this guy, I hear one of them run across the street behind me. So at this point, I completely turn around, and I see this guy walking behind me, and the other guy's still on the other side of the street. So obviously I'm scared as hell at this point. I don't know what's going to happen to me. The guy behind me, he asked me, he says, do you have a cigarette? And I turn my body around completely, and I'm still walking backwards, and I'm like, nah, man, I don't smoke. So I turn around, and the guy says, oh, you don't smoke, right? So he hits me in the back of my head, and I fall. So at this point, I'm completely dazed. Like, I get hit in the back of my head, and I don't know what's going on. I kind of figured that I was getting jumped, but I didn't really think of it like that because I was so dazed and confused at this point. I get hit and I fall. The other dude from across the street runs over, and he hits me with a brick in the top of my head. I actually have a scar right here. Hair actually won't grow right here, but I got hit with a brick right here. I look up, and I legitimately remember this like it was yesterday. I was like, why? Like, why are you doing this? And he hit me again, right? So I fall. And one of them, I feel them running through my pockets and everything. They take my cell phone. At this point, I actually just got that phone, and I was really pissed off about it. But they take my cell phone. They took the little bit of money I had on me. And the dude said, if you get up again, I'm going to hit you again. So at that point, I'm not getting up. You know what I mean? I'm a little-ass kid. I'm not fighting two grown adults off at this point. So, you know, I get home finally. I call the cops. And, you know, it's just one of those things that once that happened to me, that's what really opened my eyes to realize that there are bad fucking people out there. There are bad fucking people out there that don't need to be out there. And I was like, I'm going to be a fucking cop. And I'm going to try my best to stop this shit from ever happening to any other kid ever again. Because that shit traumatized me for the rest of my life. I didn't leave the house for like 3 months. And every time I left the house, I would look behind me. As soon as I opened up my front door, I looked behind me. Like, if I walked even a quarter of a block, I looked behind me. I couldn't go anywhere by myself. At 13 years old, for something like that to happen to you, you know, it traumatized you for the rest of your life. And I think, honestly, that was what really, really, really pushed me to the limit to want to be a police officer. You know, everybody has their own story, and I'm happy you guys listened. But I was actually going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comment section. Be sure to check my social media out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Emory Unlimited. And then on Twitch, if you guys follow my gaming endeavors at Roger Corains, and YouTube as well, Roger Corains. You guys already know that. But thank you for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or any topics for the next video, be sure to leave them in the comment section. I'll catch you guys later. Stay safe out there.